What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Bitchuation Room podcast live stream. How are you? Hello. I hope you're good. Hope you had a good Juneteenth. Hope you know what Juneteenth is now. At least there's that. If you didn't, I am your host, Francesca Fiorentini. You might have seen me on Newsbroke, the only comedy show of the Al Jazeera Media Network. That's right. I did it right here. You might have seen me on MSNBC's Red, White, and Who. You might have seen me on the Young Turks or other places at where I am underemployed. So that's me. What's up? This is my podcast, and I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for being here on all the things. If you're listening to this podcast, just take a moment to rate it. Just give a little 5e5s. That's 5 stars, not 4, not 3. I don't want to hear about Tulsi. I don't care. Okay, done, over. First one to endorse Biden. Ha 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 ha. But give me 5 stars anyway. And thank you so much, as always, for the tips, people. You guys have been so generous. Every week, we donate a portion of those tips to a different organization. And this week, we're donating to an organization called Black Voters Matter because we have a guest who works with the organization Black Voters Matter Fund. Her name is Tami Sawyer. She's amazing. She's awesome. She's headed out to Kentucky to do some monitoring of the shit show that election's going to be there on Tuesday in their primary election. But we're going to catch up with her, talk all about the black vote, the monolithic, singular black vote. No, obviously, the many different ins and outs in this moment of Black Lives Matter uprising and what all that means for the November election and all that. But I'm so glad to have you here. And I'm just going to raise this glass to my co-host, who I'd love to welcome to this podcast right now. Please welcome on this Father's Day, a guy who will never let you forget that he is, in fact, a dad of twins, Mr. Nato Green.
Cheers, comrade.
Cheers. Salud.
Salud.
I have a song for my drink.
What's your drink?
Well, it's part of the song, so I have to sing the song.
Uh-huh.
It goes, don't blame it on Obama. Don't blame it on Donald. Don't blame it on Biden. Blame it on the martini.
Nice. This is a drink called the Prize Philly. I'm enjoying it.
Nice. What does it have in it? Can you sing a song, actually? I do
not. No, I'm not going to sing. I'm not going to sing about the drink. It has whiskey and vermouth and 2 different kinds of bitters and Luciardo. I have this a love letter from San Francisco and her cocktails. It has great cocktail recipes. However, it's also hella pretentious. Like the book it's like a lot of text as well as recipes, and the book is written like a 10th grade, not 10th grade, sophomore year of college literary criticism of Milan Kundera, like that level of pretentious.
Oh,
but
that's perfect for you, Nato. Was that a Father's Day gift?
Yeah, it was a Father's Day gift a couple years ago. So last night I couldn't sleep, Francesca, and I went down a rabbit hole of watching in the middle of the night, watching Spanish and Arabic language rap videos on YouTube.
That's
and it was great. I had a great time. Except that occasionally, you know how occasionally we talk about how social internet advertising is destroying our democracy and corrupting people's minds. And then I see the kinds of ads. Hey, Cambridge Analytica, fuck you guys. And then I see the kind of ads that they're targeting me with. And so while I was watching left-wing pro-Hamas Arabic rap videos, YouTube is serving me ads for Joe Biden and men's ball trimmers. So they thought
or the hairs.
To trim the hair on my balls.
Oh, nice. First of all, that's hairs with Biden ads. In fact, that's probably a better Biden sell than Biden himself.
It does square with Biden ads, but I was like, these people don't know me. First of all, I'm not with Biden, and second of all, Lord knows I have plenty of body hair problems, but my balls are not at the top of the list of my emergent body hair situations.
I also take back. I had a whole rant about Bush, not the president, but the hairstyle down there. I take it back. I'm not sure. I went to the beach, very socially distant, and I looked down and I was like, oh damn! Like, I'm so glad that we have to be 6 feet away from each other because Franny forgot about what was going on down there. And just so you know, word to the wise. I also want to say I visited my mom this week. That's where I was, and so just to check up on her, and she's fine. But it's also like very funny because I'm trying to be distant. I did get a test, not soon enough to the time where I saw her, but got a test. I'm negative, COVID negative for as far as I know. And it was just like, well, mom, here's a little side pat on the shoulder. Hope you don't die. Like I did have that moment where I was like, Mom, if you get sick, like I will move heaven and earth and every nurse out of my way to try to get to you, but most likely I won't be able to. And so, pat on the old shoulder.
Today we went out to the deep East Bay and had Father's Day lunch with my dad and my stepmom, and they said to my wife, who is a nurse practitioner, they were like, you should just decide like how close we can be. We put our lives in your hands. And we're like, God damn it.
I think a side pat, a shoulder little smack. That's as it connotes love and concern at the same time. Hey, I hope everyone is wearing their masks and continuing to do that. Please do. But why don't we get into this week? Once again, we open every week with who day is it? And today is Sunday, June 21st, I believe. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. And we're just tracking, what ring of hell we're in this week by looking back at the week with our segment on the Bitchuation Room that we like to call the week where. Interstitial. Please send me SoundCloud links. I want to hear that sweet music. All right. This was the week where the Supreme Court handed Trump his little dick multiple times by upholding a lower court's decision on sanctuary cities, saying that gay and transgender people are protected against discrimination under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, and that DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, could stay in place. And also, surprisingly, conservative Chief Justice Roberts wrote the majority opinion on DACA. And in it, he essentially says, like, yeah, you could do this, but like, do it better. Like, you could repeal this, but next time, more legalese, more coded language. Conservative justices just want their cruelty to be like more Harvard and less Harley Davidson. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And there was, with the majority, Justice Sotomayor wrote her own decision or her own opinion on the case where she agreed with them, but she wrote her own opinion. And I just want to read the passage. She talks about the statements that he gave, because the majority decision that was written by Justice Roberts said that the rationale wasn't legalistic enough, as you say, but it wasn't racist either. And she goes on to like review all of the horribly racist things that Trump has said over the years, and then this is the line from her opinion. Taken together, the words of the president helped to create the strong perception that the rescission decision was contaminated by impermissible discriminatory animus. So I know that doesn't sound like the sickest burn of all time, but in constitutional law, that is as close as you're going to get to Justice Sotomayor literally hitting the president in the face with her chancla.
I love discriminatory animus.
Yeah.
Like, he's not racist. He's discriminatorily
he has discriminatory animus. Yeah.
He has discriminatory animus. I'm like, what is the like adjective of animosity? Is there one?
It is from the Latin root animus, which means fucking dickhead.
Oh, right. Got it. I love that. All right, moving along. This was also the week where former National Security Advisor John Bolton came out with an explosive new book that, among other things, reveals that Trump asked China's Xi Jinping for help with his reelection campaign and also praised China's concentration camps. Bolton was disturbed by the praise of the human rights abuses and solicitation of foreign intervention in his real election campaign, as it distracted from the real work, he said, of starting World War III by invading Iran. Bolton accused Trump of not consulting his advice, saying, quote, "There's no I in Ayatollah."
John Bolton doesn't like Trump. It's Trump for not being a good enough war criminal. John Bolton wants his war criminals more respectable.
Yes.
He wants some more civility. He feels like Donald Trump is a crass. He violated the war criminal's oath and credo.
Taken in blood, obviously. This was also the week where Amy Klobuchar, did you guys hear this? Senator from Minnesota took herself out of the running to be Joe Biden's vice presidential nominee, as she claims, in order to make room for a woman of color. Or maybe it's because she was a pro-cop prosecutor in the exact county that George Floyd was murdered in. That could have something to do with it. Nato, honestly, like, I'm sad. I'm gonna miss Klobuchar because, like, she had some puns. She had like the corniest jokes, and I'm sad we're gonna miss out on that. You know, because like, what happened to Klobentum? Guess the global warming ended on the status quo. She had some heavy Clo days though early on in the year, but she should have charged more police with murder. I fucked that last part. It was Klobuchar.
Do it again. Do it again. Stick the landing. Come on.
She had some heavy Clo days early on, but she should have charged more police with murder.
Hey now. Hey. There it is.
Live audience? My cat.
Live audience? Anyone? Klobuchar, the whole thing to me sounds like, it just feels like perfect, like Midwestern manners. Do you know what I mean? Like, like nobody wanted her, and she was graceful enough to just excuse herself. You know what I mean? Like she wasn't going to go out fighting or be undignified about it. She was, like, she had good Minnesota manners of like, oh, I brought a casserole and I'll leave now. No one likes me.
I'll see myself out. Yeah.
I'll see myself out.
Absolutely. This was also the week where, if you guys didn't hear, Quaker Oats decided to retire the Aunt Jemima brand of syrup because of its roots in slavery era stereotypes. And honestly, like, I'm a little torn. There's a big discussion about this because I do think, like, Aunt Jemima, she's a black woman. There is a certain amount of representation in that. But I just don't want them to replace her with like a white woman named Aunt Jean who like calls the cops on a black bird watcher, I think instead they should keep a black woman but rename her Queen Jemima's slave owner slayer syrup, and just an image of her drowning a plantation owner in a vat of syrup. Secrets in the sauce. Fried green tomato shout out. Also, like, have you noticed that there's all these brands like Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben, Cream of Wheat, they all have depictions of former slaves. Like, that's where they come from. Like, 150 years later, white people somehow still can't cook breakfast. What the fuck is up with that? I say replace them all and just call them like Honky Helper. Hey. It's the little white glove. It could still be the white glove.
Still be the white glove.
Finally, I think everyone has been following this very, very closely. But this was the week where Trump held the super spreader event of the season in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a rally which was pretty light in attendance in both number and color. Trump drank from a glass of water with one hand, discussed the difficulty of ramps, referred to the coronavirus as the Kung flu, and said that he wanted to keep testing down so that numbers of infected coronavirus people would also go down. apparently was also a huge merchandising event. I don't know if you guys read this. They were like selling Trump hats, mugs, T-shirts, golf clubs. The hottest item was actually headstones pre-soaked in the president's urine. Hey, Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. Yay, cheers.
So obviously, it was very exciting about the K-pop TikTok invasion of the Trump rally in Tulsa. Yes. So the New York Times headline read, quote, "TikTok teens and K-pop stans say they sank Trump rally." The New York Times, everybody, is using the word stans. They didn't even put it in quotes like Ebonics or something. Like, that means the word stan has jumped the shark. The phrase jump the shark has also jumped the shark. The New York Times demographic doesn't know what TikTok, K-pop, or standing even is. They do know the difference between an IRA and a Roth IRA. They are very upset about Trump's presidency, but mainly because it's eroded norms of bipartisanship and the separation of powers. For them, the whole putting children in cages and plundering the economy is a distant second. Putting TikTok, K-pop, and stan in a New York Times headline means as much to those readers as a headline about how the Janjaweed militia was hyphy, Visco girl, polytriads. It's just a bunch of gibberish to them. I demand to speak to the ombudsman. And I know what Visco girls are because I'm the father of 6th grade girls.
Are they Visco?
My kids are not Visco, but they're aware of it.
What is it? Can you just explain? I feel like this is like Father's Day. Like they should quiz you.
I mean, they're like, they're occasionally like, oh yeah, so and so, there's a Visco girl. Okay, well, what's a Visco girl? Well, they have see-through black backpacks, and they wear hair scrunchies on their wrists, and then there's some other things.
That sounds like everyone going to a concert these days. Like you have to have a clear backpack because
you're going to get searched. Right.
Exactly. Because we're not allowed, like, oh God, this is the thing with the, you can't make a clear backpack look cool. Like it always looks like a cry for help no matter what.
So since it's Father's Day, can I tell you real briefly about a adorable conversation with one of my children about Juneteenth?
Yes.
So we were explaining Juneteenth to my 6th grader, and the phrase 40 acres and a mule came up. And this is what happens when white kids grow up in families that are like very visibly opposed to racism, and they find racism totally bewildering. And then they're trying to make sense of it based on the limited information they have. So the phrase 40 acres and a mule came up, and my kids were aware that black people did not end up getting 40 acres and a mule. And my kid was like, well, was it because there weren't enough mules for all the former slaves? And we were like, oh, no, honey. The reason that white people bunked on reparations was not the logistical problems of mule distribution. It wasn't a mule supply and demand issue. There were some other problems in the way.
But that's what's nice about being a kid, is that you get to like openly ask those questions. Because she's like, well, it couldn't have been because, people, didn't fulfill their promises. It's got to be because it was just a logistical thing.
Right. They tried and it didn't work, of course.
Like, oh no. But that would have been funny if it had been the mule problem.
Yeah. Sorry, we said 40 acres of mule, then we realized that we didn't have enough mules. Whoopsie.
All right. Well, that was the week where, y'all. Thank you for being here once again. Please donate for those just amazingly workshopped jokes that we just fired off for you. Our Venmo is TBR-live. Once again, we're donating a portion of everything you give us to Black Voters Matter Fund. Tammy's going to be on with us very, very quickly. And I want to know what she's bitching about. But first of all, we want to move to our next segment. Audience, y'all, let us know what you're bitching about this week. There's a lot of things. There's things to be happy for, but there's always things to bitch about. And that's what this show is about. Nato, what are you bitching about this week?
Well, so this week I went to the Juneteenth rallies. We shut down the Port of Oakland. Thousands of people marched. It was incredible. And like, there's so many Black Lives Matter rallies. Like, I went to the Juneteenth rally in Oakland, got on BART, came home, got off BART in San Francisco, and there were like people with Black Lives Matter signs going to a different Black Lives Matter rally. You know what I mean? Like, when, like, you know that you're in a historic moment when there's like, oh, which of the 7 Black Lives Matter rallies happening today are you going to? And it's like overwhelming to manage my schedule and be like, oh, that was the whack one that I went to the dumb one and not the cool. You know what I mean?
So you're bitching about too many rallies.
It's too many rallies, and they're overlapping schedules. It's just, I'm having trouble getting it all on my Outlook calendar. So, but I mean, so the other thing is, my Palm Pilot, right? Yeah. I'm going to write it out longhand on my Slingshot calendar. I'm old school, and then I'll skateboard to the rallies. I'm not that guy. I would break a hip. So, but the other thing that I'm bitching about is actually, so like, I have a message to the whites. My people, the whites.
Some are listening for sure.
Some are definitely listening. The whites is like, I'm not super into white people participating in supporting the Black Lives Matter movement and the movement against police violence. And sort of I don't identify as an ally. I'm not really into the ally frame, because I've like run it. I've heard from some white people talk about the idea of like allyship fatigue, because it's like exhausting emotionally to like have to be aware of Black people suffering for a month, you know, without a break to like wallow in your own lightweight self-pity nonsense. And so like, I don't, you know, because of my background as a union organizer, I have a different framework than the ally framework that I'm used to thinking about, which is like a multiracial organizing framework. Like, it doesn't matter if you like, you know, are the most wokety woke person of all time. Like, the thing that I like about union organizing is that you get to have these conversations with people about like, yo, I don't care if you don't like Filipinos. You better talk to those people, or you're going to lose your health benefits, because like, you know, you need those Filipino workers to go on strike with you if you don't want to lose your health benefits. And that kind of urgency focuses people's attention on racial unity in a way that, like, you know, just watching the documentary 13th 5,000 times in a row does not.
I think I'm bitching about something a little bit similar in terms of like how to be an ally. And I think how right now, a lot of what we're going through, and especially because many people are indoors and we're on social media constantly, is that a lot of our politics are purely performative. And the advent of Twitter, which is just a place to be politically performative, makes us even more so. And so I guess what I'm bitching about specifically is like, look, we're trying to abolish the police. Let's also abolish policing one another. Like, that's it. Like, I think that we're so psyched to be one another's cop and be a cop in our heads, and that is so demobilizing. And we're all in different stages of learning, and that's okay. Like, you know, that's fine. I mean, I don't mean to be like, we just call in and not call out, but I kind of do mean that. I just feel like at the same time that I really have no tolerance for socialists or leftists who have no race analysis or don't understand how pivotal change in this country rests on racial justice. I also have no tolerance for just like performative people, maybe people of color, maybe not, maybe white women on behalf of people of color, just sort of policing everyone else's speech because they didn't use, you know, the right acronym, right? Or they didn't use they, or they didn't use whatever it is. Just chill. Eye on the prize. Focus on some concrete change. We've got an election coming up. Let's not police one another. So that's the thing that I'm like, I get really triggered because as a comic, and I think Nato, you would agree, like, we say shit that we don't punch down. That's not our style of comedy, but we're going to say some stuff and we're going to be flip and we're going to, you know, we cannot be perfect all the time. And that's what's great about being alive. That's what's great about being human, is that you say stupid shit sometimes. You learn, you grow, all this stuff. And if the right is so obsessed with like PC culture, how can we be beyond PC culture. Like, we are anti-racist. We're principled and anti-racist. But it's not just about performance, and it's not just about saying the right words. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. Well, and it's like you are so fucked up because you didn't know the thing that I just learned 2 weeks ago.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
I just did this book club 2 weeks ago, and now I know, and now I'm going to come and judge you.
For
and
sure.
It's like we have to make it. Of course I wish that like white people were like concerned about racism and figuring it out a long time ago, and like, but you get there when you get there, and and certainly like we all learn better with positive reinforcement, and being scolded for like not figuring enough things out fast enough, early enough, all at the same time. Like, it's like, I feel like it should be more like just, I actually had a situation recently where a black friend of mine, we were in a conversation. I said something. She was like, you know what, that sounds racist. And I was like, all right, fair enough. My bad. Sorry. And then we like went out and got drunk together, and it was fine. It was like, it should be at the level of like, oh, like your fly's down. I don't, like
Right.
you should just be aware of this, that your fly is down right now and everybody can see your junk, and maybe that's not, maybe you don't want that. So tighten that shit up. And then you're like, oh, thanks. I'm glad someone told me that my fly was down. I didn't want to be that guy just walking around with his dick out. Like,
exactly. And your ability to accept that critique and move forward with it is the difference between you and the right wing. There are crazy Nazis who've been like radicalized because someone told them they shouldn't say like spirit animal. And they're like, oh, hell no. Like, you have 9, whatever. Like, it's so stupid. You can't be that fragile. So it goes both ways. Be receptive to the critique. But also, I feel like let's build a world where we give each other the benefit of the doubt. And I don't mean to be super kumbaya, but like, our hearts are in the right places. Let's go easy on one another while still being anti-racist and multiracial. And with that, I'm going to read a couple comments. We're going to bring in our guests. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for donating. Thank you for being here. Tip us.
Actually,
like, I don't give a shit. $2, whatevs.
Francesca, one of the commenters is asking me a question that I feel like I have to address because it comes. First of all, check out the track on my album, the Whiteness album, How White Are Jews, where I address that in detail. I have certainly had Nazis tell me that Jews are not white because Nazis don't want us in their thing. But basically, the gist of my answer is that, I have some members of my extended family who worked really hard to be racist as part of their version of the American dream, and don't you dare take that from them. So, Jews are as white as the police think we are, and it's not like whiteness is created as a structure of power. It's not something that is based on like, you don't need fucking Jane Goodall to agree that you're white or whatever. Sorry, back to the comments.
Jane Goodall reference of this podcast, very interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to work it in every episode.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Vern on Facebook bitching about how Trump may fire everyone who would put him in prison. Very true. Letizia on YouTube bitching about the reports about hangings being claimed as suicides. I think that's in reference to a few deaths, murders, we don't know, here in California. Incredibly scary and absolutely should be investigated more. I don't even, it's so upsetting and disgusting. Absolutely. We should all be bitching about that. Hyacinth on Facebook is bitching about white people complaining about protesters tearing down the Grant statue along with Juniper Osera and Francis Scott Key ones. Good debate. I think our guests will be able to wade into that a little bit. Grant fought for the Union. Did he deserve to be torn down? Do we need to talk about it that much?
I was thinking, like, I mean, the thing about the whole statue debate to me is, first of all, like, can you, before any of this happened, could you name one statue in your city and what that person did? Like, it's not like most of us walk.
Depends on where you live, Nato. I have thoughts on this, and I want to bring in our guest because I think she has a lot of thoughts as well.
Okay, I'll shut up.
One more comment. Todd Roy on Facebook says, our show should be more popular and maybe some K-pop would help.
Preach, Todd.
Song, dude. I fucking sang About My Martini to you. Homie. Anyway, all right. Without further ado, our guest for this week, She is the county commissioner in her hometown of Memphis, Tennessee, District 7. She serves as a national field director of Black Voters Matter Fund. We're raising money for them tonight. Chair of the Memphis NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and leader of the Take 'em Down 901, which is all about tearing down Confederate statues in the South. And she's also the recipient of the Ebony 100 Award and host of the Black Steel Magnolia podcast. Please welcome Tammy Sawyer.
Hey, everybody.
What's up, Tammy?
What's going on? Hey, Francesca. How's it going?
Hi, meet Nato.
Hey, Nato.
What's up, Tammy? Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. We were just about to wade into this discussion of Confederate monuments and statues generally. So I just wanted to shout out your work with Take 'em Down 901. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a movement to take down the Confederate statues, and in 2017, you got Nathan Bedford Forrest, who Nato and I didn't know was one of the leaders, the first grand wizard, bullshit nerd, science, whatever, the race science piece of shit of the KKK.
Yep.
Taken down.
All of that was on his business card. It was a very wordy business card. Racist piece of shit. Yeah.
And then he scratched it out at the last moment of his life, thinking maybe he could atone for the first 80 years.
Was that actually what happened?
No, the Confederates in Mississippi and Tennessee love to say that he atoned on his deathbed for his racism. That would eradicate the fact that he had massacred, a whole fort of Black soldiers who surrendered, or, raped multiple Black women and bragged about it, was known as the butcher of the South. We can all apologize for everything on our deathbed, but we don't all get 9,000-pound statues. So,
I mean, this is what I was saying with, I think a lot of people don't know, and I grew up in Northern California. I didn't know the statues and I didn't really care, but I think that's very different when you're growing up in the South and you're Black and you know that there is someone like Nathan Bedford Forrest who's got a statue. So talk to us about how it feels now, 3 years later. All these Confederate statues are being taken down. Is it more than just symbolism? What are your thoughts?
So, it's been a multi-generational fight. It didn't just start with millennials, boomers and Gen X were, definitely pushing across the South to have these statues removed. And we really have, what happened in Charlottesville, with Heather Heyer getting killed. And we also have to, credit Bree Newsom for being a badass and climbing that flagpole and pulling that statue down. Between those two things, the momentum in the South to remove these statues finally really picked up. But, the neo-Confederates are embedded in a lot of our legislatures and they write laws to protect them. So what you're seeing now with people literally throwing ropes around these stone and metal necks and dragging them off, it's almost what has to happen to get these statues removed because they are so highly protected by Southern states. And so to watch it happen now, as someone who once mapped out how to torch a statue so that we could push it over. Thankfully, we didn't have having to do that. But to watch what's happening now, I just say take them down every time. It's just amazing. I mean, NASCAR, to watch NASCAR say no more Confederate flag, to see the SEC say we're not coming to Mississippi if y'all don't get, these flags off Ole Miss property. These are, like I said, fights that our ancestors have been fighting, our parents were fighting, and then we picked up the fight. And to see it become so widespread, it's amazing. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I have so many questions, but I've been following the statue debate. It seems like, are there any people who are in statues or want to have statues who are not horrible people? It seems like the statue business is basically for murderers and colonizers. That's who gets it doesn't seem like, there's no this is a great statue of a librarian who just read books to kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. So I tweeted today that I think the best statues we have is Alice in Wonderland in Central Park, and someone else was talking about the Paddington Bear statue. I mean, honestly, right? If you study religion, even I'm kind of like neo-religious, I guess. Pray sometimes. The rest of the times, I'm just hoping I make it and reading, Shawnee Nichols horoscopes, and so like,
Hold up. What's your sign?
Taurus.
Okay.
Aries rising. So kind of a fiery girl. But I just think that if we look at like the whole false idols thing, and I asked myself today, I said, would I want a statue if someone decided that like the work that I did one day was good enough? And the theology that I believe in is no. Not even thinking about like religion. I just mean like my liberation theory. As humans, we're flawed. As humans, we make mistakes. As humans, we hurt people, right? And so no one person really deserves this mantle of, stone or metal, because what it means to our generation might mean something totally different in 100 or 200 years. And so for me, having done this removal work and just been so embedded in it, I don't even say replace them with something anymore. I say just take them down. We don't need statues to individuals to tell stories. We're a digital world. We have our books. We have so many other ways to capture history besides picking 0.00001% of history that end up, being problematic. Who knew that Junipero was that problematic? Thank God for Twitter, exposing, the devastation that he enacted on indigenous people.
Question: did something happen on the 280 in California, Nato, to that statue?
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that one, but there was a statue of Junipero Serra in Golden Gate Park that was pulled down.
Because that one, can I just say that my mom,
the one with the pointing one,
Chinese mother, my mom, every time we drive by that, she'd be like, you know what that statue is saying? And I was like, what? You be good. And I was like, oh, okay.
With Junipero Serra, that hairstyle was a giveaway, though. Like anyone with that hairstyle is bad news.
I'm clearly not Californian. Thank you for because I've definitely been saying Junipero like the black San Junipero from the the episode in the now I'm not gonna be able to say it, but you know what I'm talking about. The series Black Mirror.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Junipero. Yes, that's exactly.
So that's what I thought his name is. Can you say it again? Because I'm Southern.
Es español, es Junipero Serra.
Junipero. No, I mean, I hear you on the statue thing. I do think if we could replace it with murals, that's nicer. I love murals. I do love the idea that when you pass something in the public space and that you don't have to pay and or go inside and go to a museum, that you can just be greeted by the figures who made their mark on wherever territory, whatever area you're in. So there's something really beautiful about that. But I want to move on because we have limited time, Tammy, and we could talk all night about the statues. But I want to talk to you about just quickly. You're a county commissioner in Shelby County, in Tennessee, in Memphis. And now we're going through this moment of defund the police, right? And these calls for not just reform, but real change. What is your role in that? Like, what's your power in all that? And how are you mediating this conversation in your community?
I think my power is using my seat as a bully pulpit in the way that, men have used it, and especially white men, in a long time. I'm one of 13 people. And so very often I'm outvoted because I am the admittedly most progressive, most left-leaning commissioner. And so, I'll come in and, be like, oh, Bernie said, let's do this. And everybody's like, girl, no, 1 to 12 is the final vote, But I think that my role in this moment is to unpack what I'm seeing. I do a lot of polling on social media of my constituents and really just anybody who lives in my county. You know, what do you think about this tax? What do you think about, you know, policing, right? So I'm doing a survey right now with Black Lives Matter and a few other groups locally to get people's real honest feedback on the changes they want to see in policing. And then I take it in. Last week, I took a resolution in to defund the police. It went 5-5 with 3 abstentions. And, you know, I felt actually when it was done, I was pissed. And a week later, I actually felt damn good that it wasn't 112. You know, you know, and to be able to do that in what is actually, even though it's a majority Black county, a very conservative county, and where the power is majority conservative and white, you know, to me, it's about taking these national conversations and bringing them to my city. I think one of the things that I've been able to use as leverage is that I've been a part of national work, and I've been able to like break down what people are doing in other cities, you know, being a part of networks such as Young Elected Officials and, you know, Black elected officials and Black women elected officials and all of these groups, and being like, hey, this is what they're doing in Cleveland. Let's try this. And so for me, it's about educating my constituents, because people do not talk to, once so many people get elected and then never reconnect until it's time to get reelected. You know, and I've told people, if you don't ever see me again, don't vote for me again, because I broke the promise. And so right now, what's important to me is there's so many recommendations about what reform looks like. Is it defunding? Is it abolition? But trying to make something stick and trying to change the conversation. Locally, 40% of our budget goes to policing. And we have the lowest rated school system in the state. And, you know, amongst other things, you just saw Tennessee make national news this week for a midnight vote that our Senate took, passing the fetal heartbeat ban and not even including exceptions for people who were survivors of incest or rape. This happened at like 12:30 in the morning. And as y'all know, I'm always up on Twitter till like 2 a.m. So, you know, I'm like looking for Animal Crossing codes and scrolling. And I was like, wait, what? So, you know, being able to address that locally and also to react. And I think so for me, my role has been to be a different type of politician, to be the elected official who listens, who brings your voices, who brings my constituents, you know, their actual, like what they actually say they want to see happen. And even if I lose, you know, even if I was, you know, voted down every time, at least I tried. And that's the most important thing. I don't lose faith when my fellow electeds vote against me. I lose faith when I don't feel like I'm working hard enough for what I know people in Memphis and Shelby County need.
Can I ask, like, people talk about the idea of like holding politicians accountable, and I feel like most of us don't have any idea what that means, but besides like tweeting at them that they're assholes. Can you talk like Exhibit A, my friend Francesca, or in the case of Francesca, prank calling them and leaving voicemails, or in my case, showing up at hearings and roasting people in public comment. Can you talk, like, what do you see as like the most profound and effective ways for people to hold politicians accountable besides just voting them out come election day?
Yeah, because most politicians aren't afraid of being voted out. I mean, you saw the Gary Chambers video go viral, and, you know, with Connie, the racist lady who was shopping while they were talking about removing Robert E. Lee. And the Connie actually won because nobody ran against her, you know? So we don't have enough people running for office. We don't have enough people voting. So I think the way that you hold people accountable is, one, those folks have to be willing to be held accountable. If I never talked to another constituent, I could probably still win re-election, but I would not be, my soul would be dead, you know, and I don't want to be that person. So the way that I choose to be held accountable. And I think that's one of the reasons people get away with so much that they get away with. But if you want to try to actively hold your constituents accountable, you know, for me, it's communication. People email me, people tweet me, people Facebook me, they stop me at the grocery store. And I allow that type of access, and it's stressful, but it also frames my work.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you say you're in a pretty conservative district, and I think that's an interesting question when looking at 2020 and what went down in the primaries. Obviously, we have Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee to very little fanfare. And I think that the more conservative and older Black voters handed him and helped him win that primary, in addition to, you know, all the Buttigieg's and Klobuchar's falling into place at the perfect time. But what do you make of that generational divide? And is there a generational divide within in the South with Black voters? And how does that inform your work and sort of where you hope as a progressive to kind of to move and as a Southern progressive?
Yeah, there's definitely a generational divide. I mean, you know, I was a Southern Warren surrogate, and my own mom voted for Biden. And she didn't tell me till after primary day, but and when I asked her why, you know, she said, because I know that was our girl, but I just didn't think she could win. And I said, but if we voted for her, she could have won, right? You know, and there's this math that's in a lot of like Black boomers' heads, like it's practical, because practicality has helped them survive years of systemic oppression. And there's something about like people who grew up in the 70s and 80s when like corporate America was recruiting Black people, and it was like, go to college and get your, you know, plot of grass, where it's like this practical respectability that's still so entrenched in them, right? In our generation, like, well, I'm millennials and Gen Z are still not yet active enough in politics that we can like take those reins away, or we can, you know, Clyburn can come out and say Biden is it, and everybody, you know, falls in line. But we are starting, I think, to see a shift where Clyburn gets pushback. There's enough noise being made about like, why did we just hand this to Joe Biden? Questions unasked. You know, what you saw the follow-up when people like Angela Rye and my own boss, Latasha Brown, and others called into question, like, one, Biden being unquestioned and not taking a task for anything, and then also making demands about who he picks as vice president. How I work through the generational divide is, you know, I practice on my own mom and dad a lot, you know, and their friends. And, you know, I still am like very, very loudly, you know, your quintessential Black progressive millennial. And they think we're all like jerks who didn't earn any of our like platforms or don't know what we're talking about. But I think even when you're asking about this time period, what they're seeing right now is, I just left Father's Day, and as I was walking out the house, I heard to go to the porch, I heard my uncle saying to my mom, you know, I didn't trust millennials at first, but they're really doing it, you know. And so like, you know, I guess it takes time, and I wanted to turn around and be like, oh my God, but I just, you know, acted like I didn't hear it. And I think I think it's something.
And you guys did like a TikTok choreography together and on the porch, and it was great.
Exactly.
I think it's to your credit as a human being that your thought was like to turn around and go, oh my God, and not go around, motherfucker, you didn't trust us before. What's wrong with you? I'm your kid.
Right, like you've literally watched me work all this time. What do you mean? And I did have that thought, but it just, I think it meant more to me, you know. Even like my parents, they watch CNN nonstop. They're like, every time I call my mom, I know what time it is by what I hear in the background, you know, who's on air on CNN. And so she watched what was happening in Atlanta with the protests just nonstop. And like, you know, she calls me just real quiet one night, and she goes, me and your dad just realized we did this in the 60s and 70s, and we failed somewhere, that y'all have to do this again. And I think they had really bought into this belief that it was just about behaving, that the people who were in jail, they weren't mass incarcerated. They sold drugs. They had guns, right? The people who were poor, it wasn't oppression. They just never had enough grit. They didn't work hard enough. Mm-hmm. And now, like, the whole country had to wake up. So I can't discount like an older generation of Black people who fell for the okie doke. You know, they deserve a chance to wake up as well. But because they're watching their kids get sad, you know, they believe, like my parents used to say to us all the time, the next generation is supposed to be more successful, is supposed to have an easier life. And they're not seeing this generation. They're not seeing it happen for millennials or Gen Z. We have too much debt. We don't have job opportunity. We have COVID-19. We've got police brutality, you know, Trump is our president. And so now they're like, okay, you know, maybe something is fucked up in the system.
and you can't win no matter where you turn. Go ahead, Nato.
So I was going to ask, so my understanding is that generally Black voters vote for Democrats. There's not a huge amount of flipping between Democrats and Republicans, but there's a bigger group that flips between voting for a Democrat or not voting at all. Yeah. And in your experience, I mean, first of all, is that correct? And second of all, in your experience, what is the most effective thing at driving turnout among Black voters and other groups of voters that are less likely to vote?
Yeah, so I think that Black voters, when you look at, you know, Black voters and white voters and Latinx voters, especially, like the turnout is not that much lower. I think that there is this belief that because, you know, Trump was so racist, so why didn't 100% of Black voters turn out? When really the turnout rate between Blacks, white, Latinx, Asian American, et cetera, is the difference is like minuscule in the percentages, right? Now, where it does hit is generationally, right? So back to that generational divide. But like I talked to a colleague who's a boomer and I said, when's your first time you voted? And they said 30. So we are in what is like this known world right now. So in our known world, like boomer generation on, we aren't the first generation to wait until like they're in their 30s to get serious about politics and, you know, to actually turn out and vote. Boomers that weren't like overwhelmingly voting, you know, in their 20s, you know, Gen X definitely wasn't overwhelmingly voting in their 20s. And so outside the generational issue, when we say that like Black people are either choosing to vote or not choosing to vote, I think you also have to look at the layers of oppression that exist that keep people from polls. I mean, Louisville, Kentucky is about to vote on Tuesday, and they've reduced the poll numbers from 3,000 to 800. If every Black candidate loses in Louisville, in Kentucky on Tuesday, are we going to say that that's the fault of Black voters not turning out? Or are we going to talk about the fact that lack of transportation mixed with lack of childcare, mixed with poverty, mixed with, you know, lack of awareness that there was a summer primary with a major congressional candidate, you know, all of these things that work to keep people at home. It's not that people are just saying F voting. It's that people are really literally so far removed from the polls, their hierarchy of needs. Voting falls, like they look back and they're like, oh, I would have voted if I'd been aware. I think that there are strategic things that take place to keep people from the polls.
Let me ask you then, are we making too big of a deal of Biden's running mate? Do you think that nominating a Black woman will invigorate some of the movements and the protests that we're seeing now? Or not? Or will it invigorate communities that might, you know, the Black communities that might not have otherwise come out? Or what? I don't know. Yeah, like what do you make of that whole discussion?
I mean, as like a super like not your general Black Southern woman, like more left than normal. I think like I'm so tired of Veepstakes. Like I just never want to hear Veep or VP again. Like I was like, please announce something. Like I'm so and it's sad because it's almost like all they have to keep people interested in the election right now, right? As a Black woman who understands how monumental this moment could be, right? Whether it is Kamala or whether it is Stacey or Val Demings, and regardless of what they bring with them, I think that Black women are like, we have literally dragged this party to the finish line. You owe us. Yeah. And, but also we're dutiful. Like, we're gonna vote, we're gonna do the right thing. So, you know, rewarding us with a Val Demings or a Kamala Harris and so on and so forth, you know, will energize us, but will it energize enough additional people? I really don't know.
Mm-hmm. I'm also just like, can we have not a cop or a former cop or a prosecutor? Like, is that, you know, and what, I mean, what does it say about systemic racism that I think like Black women advance in those areas around in the criminal justice system, right? That's a whole other conversation. But I'm like, then you're left with Stacey Abrams, who I really like, but then she's constantly being discredited as like, you know, well, she was, you know, hasn't been elected or / was the election stolen from her and wouldn't be able to step into the shoes. And anyway, they're like seriously talking about Biden serving like a year and change. You know, like, you talk about dragging someone to the finish line where literally the Democratic Party is choosing him as just like, all right, here we go, giddy up, we're almost there, come on, you can do this YouTube ad.
I think that's what is also making Veepstakes so big, is that people are like, whoever the VP is really, you know, your next president, right? And so it's like we'd be setting up for the first woman president and the first Black woman president. But you know, to your question, I don't know. I just feel like with the cop issue, like I was watching this video yesterday on Twitter of Kamala talking about the truancy and how she, you know, basically like arrested parents, and she's laughing. And I'm telling my dad about it at Father's Day, and I'm like, you know, she's just sitting there cracking up like, ha ha ha. And the parents are opening the letters and they know I'm gonna send them to jail. And it's that same, like, you know, laughing, hair flipping Kamala that we grew to love on stage, right?
Yeah.
The thing that I forgive Kamala for is still that generational thing. She grew up in a time when Black women were becoming lawyers, were becoming doctors. You know, they weren't challenging, like, we weren't talking about systemic oppression widespread. We weren't talking about mass incarceration widespread, right? So like someone like Kamala has to catch up to what we're talking about today. Now, she should have caught up a few years back, right? Like not in this, you know, campaign cycle. But I do think that what we can't hold so many of these people, you know, like it totally red X them out on the fact that these were women with limited opportunities. You know, if you live in Memphis, you want to have a good job, you're going to be a teacher or a police officer or work in corrections.
Yeah.
So if you then say like, I want to get elected or I want to change the world, and you change some ideas, or maybe you did work for corrections, but you didn't like the way that, like, you know, we treated the prisoners, do we say like, no, you were a cop? Because now Kamala has some privilege, right? You know, Howard grad, you know, all these other things, but also like you have to look at like like deeply at Black history and like what the paths were available to somebody like her coming out of Howard in the 80s. Sure. Does not forgive how deeply of a cop she was. Now that, but I'm just saying there's got to be some grace somewhere in there.
Meanwhile, the other side is like, well, we've got Tim Scott and one other person, you know, Senator Tim Scott, Black Republican. And it's like, you know, I feel like it is often how I feel when we talk about elections and representation, which is like Democrats are kind of in this completely other world. And you're absolutely right that, you know, we have to actually nourish and support candidates from the grassroots if we want to eventually elect someone who, wasn't a former cop, but that this is the lot we have and it's not that bad. And these women are pretty amazing. But yeah, and the other side is like, well, whitey, white, you know, so putting that all into context.
So Tammy, one of our viewers, Andrew, asks, what can be done about voter suppression? Like, you know, I've seen some polling that like a significant percentage of people think that Trump is just going to steal the election. And, you know, like, is there a strategy around it, or do you just hope that turnout is so huge that you overwhelm the voter suppression, or what do we do about it?
You definitely have to have a strategy around it. So speaking on behalf of Black Voters Matter, one of the things that we're doing, down in Georgia, we're involved in an ACLU lawsuit where we're suing the Secretary of State for not providing stamps on absentee ballots. Basically saying that if you don't provide the stamp, you're still asking people to leave the house because not everyone still has, stamps. You're still adding this extra level for people to actually vote. There's other lawsuits going on and other work that Black Voters Matter is doing along those lines. I know here in Memphis, the ACLU is also looking at similar lawsuits. The state of Tennessee actually just got sued last week, and a judge decided against them because they didn't want to do absentee ballots. And the state of Tennessee says that you have to allow people to vote absentee because of COVID-19. And so they published this bogus absentee ballot that was it was like 6 lines. It was kind of like the way that they used to do voter registration, like read the Constitution to me or else you can't vote, right? So it's like a 6 line, option A is like, I'm military. Option B is like, I'm out of the country. Option C is like, I'm in a wheelchair. Option D is like, I have or may have had or am deathly afraid of, or the possibility of one day possibly having the COVID-19 coronavirus. It's like, by the time you're done reading it, you're like, I don't know if this is the one I'm supposed to check. What's E? and so they took it back to the judge, and the judge was like,
"You're like, can I join the Marines in order to vote?"
You would be easier joining the Army than reading the 4 lines they wrote for the COVID-19 option. Mm-hmm. So the judge went back and said, you have to rewrite this because you're just making it difficult for no reason. Due to COVID-19, I don't feel like going to the poll, period. That's all they had to write, And so I think that a lot of states, and I see a question coming in about like what happens locally. There's a lot of push for us to go march on Washington and do all of these other things. This movement right now is happening in the streets of cities. And that's where it needs to stay. These fights, voter laws are framed by states and they're enacted by counties. We have to fight locally, right? Like, we should be encouraging people to march on every city hall, not on the White House. We should be encouraging people to be, petitioning their Secretary of States, to be following their local ACLU chapters, to be supporting all of the lawsuits. There are going to be lawsuits all the way through Election Day and after, right? And the more we're aware and plugged in on that, that's what's happening. NAACP organizations, the Collective PAC, Black Voters Matter, the Poor People's Campaign are all invested in local movement work towards voting because it has to happen in your city, it has to happen in your county. This is about getting one person out of the White House because we know how heinous it is, but this person has a marionette of Secretary of States, of election officials who are doing the bidding of a party that is harmful to us.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Once again, winning ticket, set a police station on fire 2020. With the vice president. Love. Yeah. Set a police station on fire / free Palestine 2020. The winning ticket.
All that. No, that's great. That I really appreciate that. I mean, I want to move on to our last segment, but I just want to say thank you for laying that out. And also I think what has been really good about this moment is that some of that just angry, never Biden sentiment that like a part of me absolutely gets.
Yeah.
I just know that it's coming from a lot of privilege, and I know it's coming from people who are informed and able to buy stamps and aware enough to go vote, and then their ancestors didn't have to face down German shepherds and water cannons in order to get the right to vote. So let's all put that in context right now, and remember, eye on the prize, and also that your organization and organizations like yours will be fighting the day after. Like if Trump actually tries to steal this, it'll be your organizations who are like suing for it. as you're saying. So you're holding us all accountable. So
and it's going to be and if Biden wins, it's going to be your organization that's going to be up his ass fully about who he appoints to what roles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Can we let's make that t-shirt too. I will be up Biden's ass.
Tammy Sawyer up Biden's ass 2021. I'm so sorry, Tammy. I did utter those words. But I want to move on. Before I do, please tip us, donate, Venmo, TBR-live. We're donating a portion to Black Voters Matter. Do it right now. Thank you so much for the people who already donated. And we want to have one last segment. We want to keep Tammy on if she doesn't mind.
No, it's good.
Wonderful. We're going to move on to our last segment, and it's a new segment because we have a tradition here on the Bitchuation Room, which is doing away with tradition. So
just making up some bullshit new segment every week.
How dare you? This week's new segment is called Wokewashing. Corporations are obviously really trying to get on the Black Lives Matter bandwagon. That's welcome, or is it? They've done greenwashing when it comes to the environmental justice movement and climate change. They've done whitewashing when it comes to just history, and now it's wokewashing. So, for example, Bank of America is going to spend $1 billion over the next 4 years to, quote, address economic and racial inequality accelerated by COVID-19. Thanks, Bank of America. You're still going to be evicting a lot of people. And my guess is a lot of Black people very soon. Walmart, this is my favorite one. Walmart is pledging to stop locking up multicultural hair and beauty products in display cases, which holy fucking shit. I had no idea that was happening.
Yep.
That is the most racist shit ever. Like, it's like, do that quietly. You know,
CVS, Walgreens, they all do it.
So racist, so messed up. Like, when you change that bullshit policy, don't like release, don't do a statement about it. Just be very quiet about that, because that's embarrassing. But Nato and I wanted to look at the streaming services because Amazon, Hulu, Netflix, they are very much woke washing, and they are putting they call it Black stories at the top of their homepages.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos agrees that Black Lives Matter. Well, he
underpays Amazon workers.
Yeah.
But we wanted to sort of get your take and also just talk about some of the things, because there's some really good movies on there. I'm not gonna lie. Like, everyone should watch Do the Right Thing. There's 13th is a great documentary. We should watch it over and over again. We should.
Everybody should watch Last Black Man in San Francisco. Love it.
But there's also other things. Nato?
Becca, can you pull up the picture? Is that so from Amazon, Honor Juneteenth, Black Voices, Black Stories. That seems nice. Just Mercy, The Hate You Give, Last Black Man in San Francisco. Sure, that sounds good. What else they got? Amazon to stream. Let's see the other options. Oh, The Bodyguard.
Right.
Not
Yeah, when I was at my parents' today, again, like, one of the things that I saw this because my dad was watching TV, and they had The Help as one of the trending, and I said, are we not paying attention to what's happening? Because this movie should be dragged down with the Confederate flag. Like, I just feel like it's ridiculous. And on one hand, if this is what you need to do, this is not a Black History Month moment, right? So what I want to know from Amazon and what I want to know from Netflix is, are you going to hire Black writers? Because Ava DuVernay sent a post out about what each of these, executive rooms look like, and Netflix, for all of the Black shows that they have, and even all of the brown shows that they have, the room is mostly white on their exec team. Same thing with Amazon, which we already know, Fox, everything, and they'll make these channels. Like, I think Fox has a Black channel now, like Black Fox or something. And it's like Fox.
Black Fox. Uh-huh.
And we're really doing this. And so Viacom owns BET, majority one Black executive. And so what I want to know is like, what are you going to do to hire people? I don't care. I know how to find Black movies on Netflix. I've been doing it as long as Netflix was open, like I don't need this. It doesn't make me feel happy. This is not Black History Month. What I need to know is, are you going to change your hiring practices? What I need to know is, are you going to pay the people who are in your factories who are still shipping DVDs to folks who refuse to get Apple TV? Like, are you going to pay them a living wage?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it takes a lot to put those DVDs in. I love that. I appreciate anyone who's still doing the DVD thing.
There was this incredible study, I think it was by Color of Change, about like the police procedural shows and how like all of those shows like Law and Order and Criminal Minds and CSI, like all of those kind of shows, the writers' rooms are all white. Yeah. And like, of course, they end up reproducing these racist ideas about cities and Black people and crime and policing and the virtue and innocence of police when like it's only white guys who like went to fancy colleges and inherited money.
I am rewatching The Wire for the third time, and like I'm like, does it have to be about McNulty always?
Always about McNulty.
Like, come on, let's just follow Bubs. Although Bubs is not the best example, but I love Bubs.
He's the everyman McNulty.
I mean, I stopped watching SVU 2 years ago because of this point. And I was a big like Saturday afternoon, don't call me, I'm about to watch like 8 episodes in a row of SVU, like lived for Elliot Stabler. And now like I can't even, the cast is all white except for Ice-T, who comes in with a bagel that he's never really eaten in his life. And, we're just supposed to like, take this in. And so now Elliot Stabler is coming back to the screen with a new show. And I'm supposed to be excited. And I'm like, I can't even watch Elliot Stabler. Elliot Stabler is the most problematic police officer. If you go back to season 1, he was knocking Black folks' heads in left and right, calling them thugs, holding guys by their like shirt, talking about, you're going to tell me what you did to that little girl. And they'd be like, you got the wrong brother, man. And then it'd be like, like I just can't watch it anymore.
I really can't. Other than The Wire, I can't tolerate any kind of crime shows. But I will say that Hulu, like I totally agree. It shouldn't necessarily be. This isn't Black History Month. This is about concrete change. I also feel like there should always be on the top line, like, hey, do you know your fucking history? Hey, like, here's some documentaries, or here's some like, feature films that are directed by Black people. Like, I like that. I kind of want that a little bit. And Hulu has Living Single on it. And I used to watch Living Single when I was younger, and I loved it. I love Queen Latifah. And I watched the pilot. Holds up. So fucking funny. It does. So good. Funny, good, single, independent Black women. They've like Queen Latifah has her own magazine that she runs. And it's just fun. It's good. So I will say, like, thank you to Hulu for bringing Living Single back into my life.
Can we get the Netflix image up? Is that possible? So this is Netflix. On the homepage, Black behind the camera. She's got to have it. Mudbound. Okay, Joanna Man though. And Scary Movie 2. And then Scary Movie 1.
I have a soft spot for the Wayans brothers, though. I don't know if that extends to Tyler Perry, and I don't know, Tammy, what you feel about Tyler Perry. I tried to watch Medea Witness Protection Program because Amazon Prime told me to.
It's horrible. I don't do Medea at all. I think we really have Tyler Perry refuses to have conversations about what it means for him to be a millionaire as a Black man, dressing up as a Southern Black woman. And as a plus size Southern Black woman, all the tropes that come my way, like I wish I could have just put a wig on and some aging makeup and have Tyler Perry's money, and he does repay it. He does repay it, but there is still something about like that, like dress up as a woman thing, and all of the stereotypes that he enacts by playing Medea. So I'm just not a big fan of him or the Medea, but like, get your money. Kudos.
he retired the character.
Yeah.
Because she ran out of things to say.
Yeah, she ran out of it before he ever came to the screen.
I have a feeling he will think of more things for her to say when he decides he needs to buy another house or something.
But what they could be doing right now too is like very quickly putting money in young Black filmmakers' hands. There are people documenting what's happening in this country left and right. And, you know, if Netflix and Hulu and all these guys wanted to do the right thing, you know, don't. And then I'm watching these budgets like, we've got $100,000 from the McDonald's fund for young Black entrepreneurs. What the hell am I going to do with $100,000? You know, like, and while it might be more, you're talking about giving 100 period to like 20 people. Right. You know, these are like, they're giving away pennies on the dollar for what these organizations and businesses have. But I would just say that I think Netflix and Hulu should be reaching out to Black documentarians.
Absolutely.
And so for our viewers who don't know, $100,000 in television money gets you about 4 minutes of a network TV pilot.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And hopefully they have more initiatives. I know Sundance is pretty good on that. I just want to shout out Andrew Martin on YouTube says Biden Medea 2020. And that's fucking hilarious. Thank you for that. Tammy, thank you so much for joining us on the Bitchuation Room podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You've been great. Follow Tammy's work, Tammy Sawyer on Twitter, and follow her organization's work, Black Voters Matter. Tip us. We're donating to them. Tammy, any final plugs? Any final things?
This would be the moment where, like, I don't know what I just inhaled. Like, my cats. Sorry.
You inhaled your cat? I do that all the time.
Yeah. So don't be mad at me, but there's been one person who's texted me like 15 times. My little brother, Marcus, who swears that I'm going to be a communist if he has his way. So I just got to shout him out. He's in LA being a menace to society. But definitely support Black Voters Matter.
Your brother sounds cool as fuck.
He is. He is. Hi, Marcus. Thank you. He's like in my text, loving it. So in real talk, let me do my job. Shout out to the Black Voters Matter Fund. We are on the ground. We'll be in Louisville this week, supporting what's happening in Kentucky. There are summer primaries happening across the South that we are active in. We support 11 states, all of your traditional Southern states, plus Philadelphia and Michigan. So shout out to the Black Voters Matter Fund. Help us do this work. Help us also, we're doing COVID-19 relief and just a lot of other things. And so support Black Voters Matter. Stop asking people why they're taking down certain statues. Oh, but Grant was nice. Oh, but, you know, San Junipero, you know, did great things for us. We cannot continue to like give passes for the history of the, you know, of the oppressors. And so I would just say, you know, take them down. Hashtag take them down US. It's time for something different.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Tammy.
Thank you so much. That was great.
For your work.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.
And Nato Green, get your plugs in.
At Nato Green on Twitter, Mr. Nato Green on Instagram. Check out my album, The Whiteness Album, and I will tease this next week. I have a big announcement.
Oh God, what if I don't have you on next week?
Oh shit, we're gonna have to talk.
Next week.
I should tell you. So I saw this in the comments. Andrew Martin, you asked somebody, have you seen Sorry to Bother You? As a matter of fact, your friend and mine, Nato Green, I've been Sorry to Bother You for a second. I'm named in the credits.
Looking at a statue.
Looking at a statue of something great. So go Sorry to Bother You, which is streaming now on Hulu. If you go watch it, I will get like 7 cents or something of residuals.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh hell yeah. That's on all of the recommended streaming Black Stories lists, apology lists. So watch Sorry to Bother You, watch the scene that probably should have been cut for time.
Hey!
And join us next week. You can always listen to this podcast, Habituation Room, on all the platforms. Rate us, give us 5 stars. That helps people discover this amazing podcast. Next week, we're going to have John Idarola from The Damage Report, which is on the Young Turks, the show that I go on every week. He's going to be on here. I don't know what we want to talk about, but I think it's going to be some Biden, Bernie. Maybe we're going to talk about the left media. I love talking about that shit, and then endure the wrath of Twitter afterwards. You guys, you've been wonderful. I've been Francesca Fiorentini. Thank you so much. We will see you next week. And remember, don't just bitch about it. Be about it. Bye.